Thom McAn is an American brand of shoes and was formerly a retail chain that started in 1922 and closed its stores in 1996. Thank you for your suggestion.
You can pound the pavement on every city street in America. You can search the countryside high and low. You can sail to every foreign port, but you'll never find a better pair of leather shoes for the money than you will at Thom McAn. Even if you fly to places that can't be found on a map. Today, it's Thom McAn.
Melville Corporation traces its roots back to 1892 when Frank Melville, a shoe jobber, took over the 3 stores owned by his employer, who had left town under a cloud of debt. Melville parlayed the 3 New York shops into a small but thriving chain. In 1909, he brought his son, John Ward Melville, into the family business. The younger Melville, who dropped the John and was known by Ward, was named vice president in 1916 and became the driving force behind much of the company's growth. As a teenager, he worked in his father's stores after school and on Saturdays wrapping packages and making change. He joined the company on a full-time basis shortly after graduation from college. While serving in the Army during World War I, Ward Melville struck up a profitable friendship with J. Franklin McElwain, a New Hampshire shoe manufacturer. Together, they devised a method to mass-produce shoes and distribute them at low prices through a chain of stores, which they decided to name after a Scottish golfer named Thomas McAn, shortened to Thom McAn. They opened the first Thom McAn store in New York on 3rd Avenue near 14th Street on October 14, 1922, offering a limited number of styles and colors. Before the end of the year, 7 experimental stores were open, all selling men's shoes for a fixed price of $3.99. That same year, Melville Shoe Corporation was incorporated. Despite the lack of variety, the discounting scheme was an immediate success, and new stores were opened all over the Northeast. By 1927, when Thom McAn chain had grown to more than 300 stores, demand outstripped the capacity of their New Hampshire plant, which produced 20,000 pairs a day. Consequently, McElwain acquired a new plant in Worcester, Massachusetts. Melville Shoe, like other businesses, suffered during the Great Depression. In 1932, for example, sales dropped more than 21% from 1931 levels, from 26 million to 20 million. Despite rumors of bankruptcy that circulated in 1933, Melville Shoe weathered the storm with careful management, prudent expansion, and financial innovation. In 1936, Melville made a public stock offering, taking its place on the New York Stock Exchange. Throughout the 1930s, Melville continued to open more outlets. By 1939, Melville operated 650 Thom McAn stores and also marketed its product through its smaller John Ward and Frank Todd shoe store chains. Ward Melville moved to centralize and unify the entire production and marketing operation under one corporate head. He proposed that Melville merge with McElwain's manufacturing company. McElwain's company was producing more than 11 million shoes annually for Melville. The stockholders of both companies approved the merger in December of 1939. The following year, Franklin McElwain and Ward Melville participated in a ceremony to commemorate the production of their 100 millionth pair of shoes. In 1940, as the economy started climbing out of the Depression, Melville posted sales topping $40 million for the first time. Sales continued to climb through the war years, and the growth continued unabated until 1952, when total sales actually fell for the first time since the Depression. The decline from $92 million to $90 million signified the first inkling of weakness in Melville's time-tested strategy of producing a few styles of relatively cheap shoes. In an expanding and competitive economy, diversity and specialization became increasingly necessary. According to Melville, began to add more women's and children's shoes in an effort to diversify. In 1952, Melville acquired Miles Shoes, a chain of 151 stores. With this acquisition, better results were realized immediately. Sales for 1953 increased about 20%, topping $108 million. By 1955, Melville had grown to include 12 factories and 850 stores. As part of the sustained effort to increase market penetration, Melville created a new division in 1960. The new unit, Meldisco, was dedicated to leasing and supplying family shoe departments and self-service discount department stores. Over the next 2 decades, tremendous growth at Melville transformed the nature, breadth, and scope of Melville's operations. Between 1962 and 1967, sales jumped 50% and net profits tripled. By 1967, sales topped $260 million. At the end of the 1960s, Melville was the nation's largest shoe retailer, operating 1,400 Thom McAn, Miles, and Meldisco outlets. The growth also brought increasing differentiation and specialization as Thom McAn turned into a suburban-based family chain, whereas Miles specialized in women's and girls' shoes. In 1973, Melville initiated a venture to market Thom McAn shoes in Japan. By 1982, Melville was the largest U.S. shoe retailer, operating nearly 5,200 total stores. These included 470 Chess Kings, 588 Foxmoors, 433 CVS pharmacies, and 1,200 Thom McAn outlets. Despite the recession of the early 1980s, sales rose to $3.3 billion in 1980. Nevertheless, Melville suffered some retrenchment during the 1980s. The firm began to phase out 6 of its 7 shoe factories in late 1983, eventually terminating about 2,000 jobs. In 1985, Melville sold the 614-store Foxmoor chain, whose sales were declining. That same year, Melville shut down 72 Thom McAn outlets. In 1988, it purchased the athletic shoe chain Foot Action. Retrenchment came to the forefront in 1992 and 1993 as Melville struggled in a more difficult environment for retailers. In December of 1992, Melville announced a major restructuring involving the closure of up to 800 stores and a pre-tax charge of $347 million. About 390 of the 730 Thom McAn locations were subsequently closed. Melville, in October of 1995, announced sweeping restructuring through which it planned to spin off or sell off several of its businesses to focus primarily on its most profitable unit, the CVS drugstore chain. In 1996, Melville spun off 2 of its footwear operations, the 444-unit Foot Action chain and Meldisco, operator of the leased shoe departments in nearly 2,200 Kmarts and almost 400 Payless drugstores, into a new public company called Footstar Incorporated. The Thom McAn chain was closed down after the conversion of about 100 of the stores to Foot Action outlets. The shoe brand continued, though, with the closure of the retail outlets. Thom McAn shoes began appearing in Kmart stores through the footwear departments operated by Meldisco. In 2003, Footstar began selling Thom McAn in 1,500 Walmart stores. In 2005, Kmart owner Sears Holdings reached an agreement with Footstar, which by then was in bankruptcy and consisted almost entirely of the Meldisco-operated footwear departments inside Kmart stores, to let Footstar run the shoe departments through 2008, after which Sears would purchase the remaining inventory at book value. In April of 2008, Sears Holdings agreed to obtain Footstar's intellectual property, including the Thom McAn brand name. So what do you remember about this place? Leave a comment or a suggestion for a future video below. And if you haven't already, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.
Bringing back memories from the good old days. That's super cool, man.